Welcome to Season 5 of the Get Out of Teaching podcast, presented by Larksong Enterprises. This podcast is for teachers who are considering leaving education but feel like they have no options. I'm your host, Elizabeth Diakos. I'm a career transition coach who guides overwhelmed teachers out of education and into a life they love. In this season, we'll be speaking with wellbeing experts who can help you to stay well as you plan your exit. But I also want to share something with you. Many teachers want to escape the classroom, but still have a passion to teach. If that sounds like you, then consider becoming a learning success coach. Founder Kahila Sivas has created a business in a box. It's a 12-week guided process to build and launch your independent coaching practice with no profit share or franchise fees. Be inspired by the latest stories of teachers who are leaving the classroom at www.learningsuccesscoaches.com and get out of teaching with confidence. Episode 20. Hi everyone and welcome to the show. On today's show, I'm really delighted to be speaking with Deb Harman, who's a coach, an NLP practitioner, and someone who helps people avoid burnout. Deb, welcome to the show today.
Thanks, Elizabeth. It's great to be here.
So Deb, give us a little bit about your background and what does a day in the life of Deb Harman look like?
Okay. So my day varies depending on what I'm doing and the clients I'm seeing. But predominantly at the moment, my focus is on working with people who are struggling with both burnout and also those who are feeling anxious at the moment. So I probably see maybe 3 or 4 clients a day and work with them and work through the issues and what they're feeling and work on strategies to help them move away from what they're feeling and to come out of it more positive and excuse me, just try and just avoid the burnout and all the symptoms that can go along with that and all the negative feelings. Yeah.
Deb, do you meet people in person or are you doing Zoom now?
I do a bit of both. So I do a few Zoom calls, and then also our local doctor's clinic does refer some clients on to me too. So I do tend to see them face to face. So it's a good mix, which is what I like.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, well, it's great. I mean, actually, I do nearly everything by Zoom. I rarely meet a client in person. Usually, if I do, it's not as a conversation, it's for coffee or something, on the rare occasions that I'm able to make it happen. Okay, so how did you get into doing what you're doing? Like, what's your background?
Okay, so I actually became a coach about 10 years ago. At that point, I was actually working in childcare, and I was actually just walking through the library one day looking for some books. And for some reason, I was drawn to the self-help section. And to be honest, I don't even think I knew it existed. And I picked up a couple of books and I read them and I was actually fascinated by them. And then my partner, who had been into self-help for many years and we'd sort of not long met, he introduced me to the work of Tony Robbins. And I just absorbed a lot of that. And that was when I decided that I actually wanted to become an NLP practitioner and really wanted to help people.
So can you explain what that stands for and what that means?
NLP. Okay, so Neuro-Linguistic Programming. And what that does is when you're talking to somebody, obviously what we hear are their words, but their body language can often say a lot more than what the words are actually saying. So NLP, I guess to put it fairly simply, is about reading the body language along with the words that are being said and just looking at them and do they match up? And in that client situation, if the body language is not matching the words that are being spoken, then that's an indication that you need to dig further and, you know, ask questions to find out what the issues are. So that's how I envisage NLP. That's what it means to me.
Yeah. Okay. And so it says programming though. So that, for me, that has an undertone of, I don't know, something sinister maybe.
Yeah, look, I think, yeah, I don't like the word programming, but I guess when you look at it, our brains are all programmed to behave in a certain way. And that's, you know, a combination of everything we've learned as we're growing up. So I think that's what the programming relates to. It's our own internal programming. It's not me coming along and reprogramming your brain.
Right. Okay. So I don't need to start worrying if you're going to brainwash me on
No.
today.
It's your own internal program that we use to draw out, I guess, the truth behind what you're trying to say and where you're trying to go in your life.
Okay. All right. So when I, you know, put out the call out to get people to come on the podcast to talk about teachers who are considering leaving the profession, but who would like to stay well while they plan their exit strategy.
Yep.
One of the things you said to me was that you help people with burnout.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about what are the symptoms that we should be looking for when we're in that state or heading into that state where we're about to go under?
Yep. Okay. So they can be quite wide ranging, so quite different for a lot of people. But one is we become quite cynical about our job. It's just like, I guess we just don't care anymore.
That was totally me.
Yeah.
As soon as you said that, I'm like, oh yeah. I know
yeah, you're turning up and you're going through the motions.
Okay.
So that's one. Another one obviously is just plain exhaustion. And yeah, and then from there, I think the symptoms will all build. But yeah, it's the exhaustion and the cynicism, I think, which are the two main things to look out for initially.
Right. Okay. And so the cynicism, I totally, like I said, that really resonated for me, where I was rocking up and I was complaining all the time. Like we'd have a team meeting for that. I was in the arts team, so I was an art teacher. One of my colleagues would know. He was like, he would come armed with Freddo frogs and cups of tea for everybody, because he knew we were just going to have a whinge before we did any work. The poor guy, he was so lovely, but I was just, by the time I was ready to leave, I was so over it. And I would come in early and sit and write job applications until the bell rang, and then start teaching, because I had to get out of there. Okay. So there was that cynicism, and I don't think I felt exhausted exactly, but it was more about this hesitation. Like I didn't want to put my feet on the ground in the morning, because I knew that was inevitably the beginning of that, you know, I've now got to get ready and go. Whereas if I stay in bed, on some level, I felt that I didn't need to go to work. So I always did go, but you know, that was my kind of weirdly kind of malfunctioning thinking that was happening at the time for me.
And I think that's what most people start to feel, is that real cynicism. I don't want to be there. So they turn up and they go through the motions of doing it, but I don't think you're even present when you're in that state.
Yeah, they call it presentism or something, don't they? That you're there physically but not mentally.
Yeah, I haven't heard that term, to be honest, but so I won't argue that point with you, but that sounds about right. But yeah, and I know when I was burnt out myself, I wasn't in the teaching industry at that point, but yeah, you just went there and you just thought, really, do I need to be here? It's just, it stops at some point being your passion, and you just lose all passion for something that you were passionate about.
So what were you doing before you started doing your own business?
Okay, so I've the last job I did, I was actually an educator, so I've got a childcare background.
Okay.
Not a teaching as such background.
Right. Well, they call it early childhood education now, so that counts.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So that was my background in the 10 years up until we moved here 6 years ago, which is when I really started my coaching business. Right, so okay. Yeah.
And so you said that you'd felt that feeling of burnout and not wanting to be there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it comes about because, well, one of the things they says it causes it is you feeling unappreciated. And I think, especially in the childcare industry, that is a big thing, because it's most of it's profit driven. And when you see the owners are not really passionate about the children, they're just passionate about the bottom line. And I'd had my own business. I don't know if you've ever heard of family daycare.
Oh, yes. Yep.
Yep. So I had my own family daycare business for 6 years, and that was brilliant. I loved that. And then when I transitioned into the long day care, it's like, this isn't what I wanted to do. This is not what it's about. It wasn't what it was about.
International audience, family daycare, correct me if I'm wrong, Deb, is where you bring children into your home and you care for them in that home environment, maybe along with your own children as well. And their parents. So similarly to, you know, an institution that would get dropped off in the morning and picked up in the afternoon, but it's a lot more of a sort of family friendly home environment, and maybe with multiple age groups in the same, you know.
That's right. That's right. So for preschoolers, we could have 4 children. And well, I'd often have siblings, so I might have, say, a 4-year-old and a baby from the same family. So yes, so but yeah, limited to 4. So it's a very different scenario to the long daycare system. And I don't take away from the passion of the carers themselves, but it was the system that upset me. Yeah. You know, so yeah, so I think that was a large contributor towards my issues and my burnout.
If you don't mind me asking, like, how did it impact you? Like, what were your symptoms?
Okay, so well, by the time I came home, I wasn't exhausted as such, but I went off to the doctors, and he said, you just need time off. And I literally sat on the couch for 3 weeks, and it was just like my brain wasn't functioning anymore. I couldn't think. Yeah. If I read something, I couldn't absorb it. I'd get up to do something and I couldn't remember. So it was just like a complete brain fog for me. Okay. And I mean, a bit of stress and all the rest of it thrown in there, but it was the brain fog that was really debilitating for me.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Then what happened?
Okay, so I spent the 3 weeks at home. The doctor had obviously referred me on to a psychologist, and he was actually really good, because he allowed me to choose my psychologist. And he said, you need, and I think this was the big thing for me, you need someone that you resonate with. So when I was going through the websites, and, you know, I found this beautiful looking lady. Now, she was about my age, but she was sitting there she was just in an armchair by a window with a beautiful view of the Tweed out the back.
That's a river, by the way, for
yes,
everyone.
that's the river. Yes, the Tweed River. And almost a hippie style dress, and she had her dog with her. And I just looked at that picture and I thought, you feel like the person I need to speak with.
Mm.
And I think that was the big thing for me. And I think we only actually had 2 sessions. Because I started doing some self-work as well. But it was good to have that other person just to go and speak to.
Yeah. And I think that's, I would recommend that for anyone who's planning to leave and who's feeling really stressed and demoralized and underappreciated and all those things. Take some time off work. Use up your sick leave. That's what it's there for.
That's
go and get
it.
some professional help.
Yep.
And I would say do that. Like, I often work with people who are seeing a psychologist and a counselor in some cases, and they're working with me as a coach because I'm helping them to look to their plans for the future. Whereas the psychologist and the counselor are kind of helping them to deal with what's happened in the past and the current situation and get well enough so that they can actually have the headspace and the clarity of thought to be able to plan. Because when you're in that place of, really distressed, it's impossible to think creatively. Your brain's not wired for that. So
that's exactly right. And that's why I'm now, more focused on why we need to avoid getting into this in the first place.
Okay, so tell us how we managed to do that, Deb. I'm all
okay. Okay. So from what I've devised, there are 3 things. Okay. So the first one is boundaries. We must have clearly defined boundaries and set them up in the workplace. So sitting down, thinking about what you're prepared to do work-wise. I mean, we're in a society now, we've got these mobile phones and we're on 24/7, and I've spoken to a few teachers over the years, and, I know teachers take work home with them. They've got their work emails on their phones. And look, they're very passionate about what they do, but they don't turn off.
Yeah.
So
I know so many, I've worked with so many teachers who, when they make the initial contact with me, are sending me a message from their work email. And I'm like, this is your homework for tonight. Go home and open up a normal Gmail account. That's your personal one, and get all your school stuff onto your work one, and all your personal stuff onto that, so that if you do leave, you're ready to go as well. So apart from anything else, but it allows you to keep it quite separate then. You don't have to have your work email on your phone or be available all the time.
That's it. And I mean, I realize with teachers, I mean, the school day is 6.5 hours long, and I know that there is a component that they need to do outside those hours, but clearly define what that component is going to be. So, I mean, I know one of the great things about teachers is you work the same hours as your kids, and you pick them up, you go home, but then you work for a couple of hours when they've gone to bed. Clearly define how much time that is going to be. Don't sit up till 3 in the morning marking papers, and have some very set times around when you are going to work. And once that time limit is gone, it's gone. You're stopped, you're finished. I mean, those of us with 9-to-5 jobs, I mean, we walk out at 5 o'clock. That's it, end of story.
Yeah. One of my cousins was a teacher, and he's now got a job doing as a video technician for a court, where the Justice Department. And the first day he started at that job, as he was leaving, he picked up his computer, and his boss said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Oh, I'm going to go home and finish this." And he goes, "No, mate, leave it here. Work stays at work." And he just couldn't believe it,
Yep.
Gobsmacked.
Yep. and that's it. And when your work starts to overlap with your personal life too much, you just end up with no me time, you know, and you start to sacrifice what's important.
Absolutely. Okay, so that was boundaries. What's
So
next?
there's boundaries. So the other one another one is self-care. So taking time for yourself.
Okay.
Okay.
Foreign concept. What does that mean?
Okay. Make time every day just for yourself to do something that you love or something that you will make you feel better. Okay, so it could be going out for a walk by yourself. It could be your yoga, your meditation. It could be sitting in a quiet corner reading a book. Go and have a bath. But just do something, I guess the word is that nourishes you and makes you feel better. And I mean, that's something that's very different for all of us. But everybody needs just some time for themselves. And, you know, I encourage if you're partnered and you've got a family, then I think you need to sit down, have the conversation around my half hours at such and such and your half hours at such and such, and that's our time and there's no disturbances.
Yeah. No,
you know,
yeah.
I think that's very important for everybody, just to have some time just to get into your own headspace, I guess, and think things through. I mean, for some people, it's what I've already mentioned. For others, it might be journaling. And sometimes just sitting by yourself and writing down your thoughts can just make you feel so refreshed.
Yeah. So it's really, it's not hot baths and, you know, dark chocolate. It's something different to that, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's I mean, you can have your time in the bath and do your thinking in the bath. There's nothing wrong with that, but it is really just making sure that you get the time, I guess, to just be at one with yourself.
Yeah.
And have that quiet time. And that's just so very different for everybody. You know, and we've got a lot of people out there who say, oh, if you get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and do this, this, and this, you can be a new person. Well, that doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah, I have that. I actually like the mornings. I'm always nicer, but I tell you what, the last few weeks, I'm like, yes, I'll get up. And then, oh, but it's cold. It's much nicer in bed. I'll just stay here. And so, you know, I get slightly annoyed at myself, but I'm also like, well, you obviously need that sleep too. So if you need sleep, sleep's a form of self-care too.
Absolutely. And, you know, again, that's something you need to work out to make sure you are getting, you know, between your 7 and your 9 hours sleep, depending on your own situation. And I know my son's got young children and they take turns having a sleep in on a Sunday.
Nice.
So I think that's quite nice, you know.
Yep.
And yeah, that I guess can be another form of self-care. But no, sleep is not something you need to be going short on at this point in time. If you're not, you know, if you are feeling a bit burnt out, you really need to look at that.
Okay, so we've got boundaries, self-care. What else?
Good food and exercise.
Okay.
It's one of those things when you're tired, when you don't feel like it. I guess that's one of the first things that we let go of. But making sure that you do eat, you know, a good nutritious diet and getting out and getting some exercise every day is really important. So, and it's what works for you. I get up, I do one of these 5 a.m. morning routines. I am an early bird. And they say to get up and to exercise for the first 20 minutes. Well, to me, there is nothing worse than leaving the house at 5 a.m. in the morning. I can't stand it. So I just put my headphones on and just dance for 20 minutes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you're staying at home, but you're doing the exercise and getting the blood flowing.
Yeah, because they're telling me to go for a run. I've never run anywhere in my life. Why would I start now?
I love that.
You know,
well, I started during lockdown. I'm in Melbourne. We had like multiple lockdowns.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
I started walking really, like I was walking, but I got right into the habit of it, doing 5,000 steps before breakfast, which is about 50-minute walk.
Yeah.
And I've discovered all these hidden treasures in my local area, which was been amazing. I must admit I've eased off a little bit from that habit. But I still do, I'm still getting like my 12,000 steps a day most days. And it was just such a godsend to be able to go for a walk, get out of my own head, be in nature. For me, it was great. Even if it was dark, I actually bought myself a bright blue little puffer jacket thing so that so I wouldn't get run over. Because I'm in Melbourne, right? Everything I own is black, so I had to get something really bright in case I got hit by a car. But it was just such a good thing for me. Like, really did help a lot to feel better about being, because then the rest of the day we were basically stuck in the house and we couldn't go anywhere. So that was a treat, was to go for a walk.
Yes.
Okay, so these are all strategies that I guess, at some level we all know they're good for us, and yet people aren't doing it because they're overwhelmed, they're anxious, they're stressed, they're depressed. So how do you get yourself out of that? How do you make yourself do what's good for you?
Okay, so you've got to change your mindset.
Okay.
Now, I guess there's a few ways you could do that. The most obvious one is to sit and to talk to somebody about how you feel and what the changes are you want to make, and get them to hold you accountable.
Okay.
And you could do that, between two friends, and you hold each other accountable. So, did you go for your walk today? Did you eat the good food? So that is one way. Obviously you can get professional help, and depending on where you're at, obviously you can come to somebody like yourself or myself as a coach. If it's got too far, then obviously you will need to go down and look at a psychiatrist or something instead. But you've got to talk it out, and you've got to work out some simple strategies. Now, when we're feeling anxious or burnt out, if we're going to try and take on too much, we're going to go into overwhelm.
Okay.
Okay, so we need to make sure we don't do that. So I would always recommend baby steps. So change one thing a week. Change one small thing a week.
So do you have an example of what that might be? Okay,
so maybe you start with your half-hour self-care session.
Right, okay.
Yep. It could be that.
If you weren't doing that, and so say you get up at, I don't know, 6:30, say, for example, and you're now going to add in a half-hour self-care session, that means you've got to get up at 6.
Yep.
That's, I can imagine for a lot of people that's going to be a hard ask.
Okay, get up at 6:20 and do 10 minutes.
Okay. And so ease it in gently.
Ease it in, yeah. Okay. And I mean, that's one of the things I found, even for myself in the past. You'll go and, say, for example, you've been to see a coach, you've been to a weekend seminar, say, and you get all these brilliant ideas, and you come home and you're like, oh yes, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and you fall in a heap. And you do that because the ideas are great, but it's too much too soon. And you've got to retrain your brain for all these things.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, you've probably heard it before, but it takes 21 days to form a new habit.
Yes, I've definitely heard
various
numbers of days, but
okay, and it varies, and it does vary for every individual. I mean, I'm reading a book at the moment that says it's 42 days, so that's twice that. Okay, so basically what they're saying is change can't happen overnight.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. So you need to be consistent and persistent. Okay, so if you're going to have that 10 minutes in the morning to do whatever it is you want to do, it can be to journal, it can be to go for a walk, excuse me, it can be to sit and meditate, but just start with 10 minutes, start with 5 minutes, start with whatever you've got, and then slowly increase it.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, so by the end of 6 weeks, which is, what's that, 7, 14, 21, that's your 42 days.
Right. 6 weeks.
You'll be doing your half an hour.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Yeah.
You know,
yeah, I was very good when I started doing the walking. I was going every day, rain, hail or shine. In the end, my feet got so wet from always, going in the rain. I lost one of my toenails.
Oh no.
But I did it every day. I was very proud of myself.
Well,
so, yeah.
What I do exercise wise now, and this has been built up, so anybody listening to this, do not go out and try to do this tomorrow. But I do that 20 minutes of dance in the morning because that energizes me for my day. I do clinical Pilates 3 times a week, so that's 3 50-minute sessions.
Right.
And I walk 10,000 steps most days.
Right, that's pretty impressive.
So, and that's from somebody who doesn't have a sporting background. I don't think I've done anything since I left school, and that was quite a while ago now. But I've never been sporty. I have always walked. I've always been quite passionate about walking. And that was the one thing I always encourage my children to do. But everything else has been a gradual build up. So the clinical Pilates happened because I injured myself. So that was a recommendation from the medical professionals who were looking after me. And then I loved it. So now I do it for fun.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
You know, but that's 3 times a week. So, but great. Even that was built up.
The first time I went to a Pilates class, no, the second time I went, it was like stations and we had to move around. Yeah. And after about the third one, I had to crawl between them. I couldn't stand up again. I was in agony. I'm like, I'm so unfit. It was terrible. That was, and then I started doing the walking and, got a lot fitter, but oh man, it was bad. So Pilates is hard work. That's for sure.
It is, but mine's supervised by a physiotherapist.
Right.
So it's geared to me. So if you were to be coming into my class, you wouldn't be doing the same as me. You'd be doing whatever was geared for you.
Right. Yeah.
So I like that. I don't want to be in a class where we're all sitting there doing the same thing. No, that's not me.
Okay. So we've covered a lot of ground. What should I have asked you, Deb, that I haven't asked you yet?
I was actually I'm going to have a quick peek because I did make a few notes last week. And I think we've actually covered, no, there's another thing I wanted to cover.
Oh, please do. Tell us.
People pleasing.
Okay. Say more.
Say more. Okay. So people pleasing is something we do to be accepted. Women do this much more than men. And there's some argument that it's almost part of our sort of female hormonal genetic type makeups. But we want to do things that will please people. So one of the things we tend not to do is say no. Okay. And this is one of the things I think also contributes to burnout. So if your boss comes up to you and says, oh, can you do this? And you're saying, oh, if I say no, I might lose my job, or I might not get that promotion. Or so we just say yes, and we just end up again taking on too much. So learning more about the art of saying no, I think, is really important to avoid burnout.
Yeah, I love that. That's really powerful. And certainly I think nearly every teacher in the world needs to hear that message, that it's okay to say no.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, you know, we've all got to do it. We all have to learn to say no and know where our own limits are and not cross those limits, which comes back to your boundaries that we mentioned earlier.
Yeah. I remember being told on the last Friday of term, we had to do some new curriculum thing for the first day back. And so, you know, I was going on holidays with my husband. I was ringing my teammates in the arts team saying, like, what are we going to do about this? We're all scurrying around like headless chooks. Why didn't we just say no? What was wrong with us? We wouldn't have even got, like, our jobs weren't under threat. We could have easily said no, but it was just this ridiculous pressure that we took on. And then of course then you get to the point where you just like, I'm done with this job, I'm always being asked to do too much. And so that's why you want to quit, because you're overwhelmed with all the demands of the job. But actually that one you didn't need to say yes to. You could have just said, no, it's not really part of my job description, or at least, what do you want me to drop? If you want me to do that, what should I not do?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And that's one thing a lot of people are too frightened to do.
Yeah. It's a good question to ask, though, isn't it? To say, what would you like me to set aside while I work on this project?
Yep, absolutely.
And it's not rude or disrespectful to ask that question. It's just like, it's pragmatic, you know. There's 168 hours in a week.
Yeah, well, that's right. And what are you supposed to work at them, 40?
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
You're not supposed to work 100 of them. You're only supposed to work for 40 of them. So if you're already maxed out, then that's your question. I can do this, but what duties can you take away from me so that I can do this for you?
Yeah, I love it. Oh, if only I asked that question about 10 years ago, I might still be teaching. Okay, so as we wrap this up, and Deb, I did not give you any warning about this question, so I apologize in advance.
That's okay.
I'm going to ask you, what's your favorite song? So you're allowed to have a moment to think about that, or if not a song, maybe an artist or a style of music that you love, just to get a little window into your world.
Okay. I'm a big fan of 60s and 70s music. I guess my all-time favorite is a guy by the name of Cliff Richard.
Yep.
He is a UK-based singer. I actually traveled to the UK, it's almost 3 years ago now, and I actually got to see him in concert over there, which is probably the last time I'll see him. But yeah, I love all the old rock and roll stuff.
And do you have a favorite Cliff Richard song?
Yes, actually I do, and it's actually called Why Should the Devil Have All the Good Music? Oh,
okay. I don't think I've heard of that one.
Yeah, it's a bit more obscure from a lot of his stuff, but yeah, it's one that I really, really love.
What is it about it?
Okay, so he's actually a devout Christian, and because he's a rock and roll singer, people used to basically say, well, how can you be a rock and roll singer and a Christian? They don't marry up.
Yep.
Right. So he got this song, I think it was from an American singer originally, and basically it was basically saying, well, the devil doesn't have all the rock and roll, the Christians can have it as well, sort of thing. So that's the whole theme behind it.
Nice. Okay.
You know, so
yeah. So in other words, why should the devil have all the fun?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. We can have, you know, everybody can have fun. Doesn't matter what your beliefs.
Nice one. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. It's certainly unusual. I haven't. I ask this question a lot, and I usually get some obscure, eclectic mix of songs that people like. It's nice to just get a little vignette of, you know, what lights you up. It's nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, well, I think we've covered off everything, haven't we? We've talked about burnout. We've talked about what NLP is. We've talked about ways to engage in self-care, set some boundaries, eat, as my mother would say, eat plenty of fruit and vegetables and get a good night's sleep.
And
then you've added people pleasing as well, which I really like. I think that's something that certainly a more awareness around that would have really saved me, I think, in a lot of ways. Just being a bit more kind of tuned into when it was starting to happen.
Yes.
And being ready for it and having a contingency plan in place to set the boundaries.
Yeah. Well, hopefully with this information, we can, you know, prevent a lot more people from having to deal with burnout.
So Deb, before we wrap up, if people wanted to use your service and work with you, what would be the best way for them to get in touch?
Okay. I do have a website. So that is Ultimate Life Shift, and there is a contact on there. Otherwise,
so is that .com or .com.au?
Oh, it's actually both.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay.
Yeah, we have both. So ultimatelifeshift.com. And if you put in the AU, that'll feed into the .com site. So that's all good. Okay. So there is a contact form on there. Otherwise, if you want to, you could just email me directly, and it's just simply deb@ultimatelifeshift.com.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you.
No
Deb Harman,
worries.
thank you so much for coming on the Get Out of Teaching podcast today.
Thank you for having me, Elizabeth. It's been a lot of fun.
You've been listening to the Get Out of Teaching podcast, presented by Larksong Enterprises, with your host, Elizabeth Diakos. Thanks for listening. If you need more support in your journey out of education, take a look around my website, larksong.com.au, where you'll find free resources, my resume revamp product, and a link to book a strategy call with me to get you moving forward. I've been where you are now, and you don't need to do this alone.